Welcome to Daddy's Podcast.
This is the Redefining Plastics podcast. Got a little different opening today. Wanted to give everybody a heads up. There's going to be some audio issues. Adrian was on the road, and so there's going to be some sound difficulties for a little bit, but it's well worth listening to. So I wanted to still get this out there because it was a great conversation. But Adrian Colesberry, the CEO of Buoy, they're taking ocean-bound plastics to make HDPE bottles to compete with the likes of Stanley and others. So this is right up my alley, taking plastics that otherwise wouldn't have gone back into the stream or into the economy and making new products and long-lasting products and things that aren't just going to be single-use plastics. So enjoy the show, and hopefully the sound quality is up to par. Welcome to the Redefining Plastics podcast, where we're constantly talking to people that are making recycling happen. We got one of those today. We got Adrian Colesberry from Buoy. And you reached out to me probably a couple weeks ago, said, hey, I wanted to have a conversation. And I said, well, this sounds like a good podcast episode. So why don't we have the conversation while we're recording a podcast? So I appreciate you being flexible, and welcome to the show.
Thank you, Justin. Well, I'd first like to say, big fan of the show. I honestly just discovered it maybe a month ago, and just started listening, and it's right up my alley. It's what I attempt to do, which is have a rational, reasonable approach to just doing something good in the space of plastic use and recycling. And this is a valuable resource. We got to reuse it. And you're one of the few voices out there that's just rationally going through, how do we make this happen? So thanks for everything you're doing. It excited me. And because you're doing the polystyrene recycling, and I'd never, it's this myth out there that you know very well that, polystyrene, you can't recycle polystyrene, you can't recycle it. And then when you're the very first podcast years I listened to, you were like, oh my God, we're out there trying to recycle polystyrene. And I'm like, oh, well, for God's sake, why does everybody say this nonsense if it can be done? And then we had a use case, which we'll get into. And that's why I reached out, because I wanted to talk about the possibility of recycling polystyrene.
Well, yeah, the polystyrene myths, as I'll put it, they're not unfounded. I think there's a general understanding that specifically with expanded polystyrene, it's difficult to collect, right? Because it's loose, it's light, and so it takes up a lot of space in landfill. So if you don't compact it and you don't densify it 50-1, it's impossible to ship all over the place. So you have to really be good at aggregating, densifying, and then shipping it to where you need, because then it becomes just like any other commodity. It's actually a pretty efficient system, and there's a lot of money to be made there if people want to get involved. But anyway, we'll get into that discussion as we go through this. But why don't you tell us a little bit about Buoy?
Yeah.
However I want to say it, because like I'm from the Midwest and we don't have a lot of those, so I always kind of say it one way or the other, and I never catch myself. Well, why don't you start with why you're doing what you're doing, what the company is all about, and what's your overarching mission?
Yeah. So Buoy, great question. So Buoy is a startup that began in 2019, right before the pandemic, and then our progress got massively slowed during the pandemic as I got into other consulting. I'm a biomedical engineer by education, and I worked my entire career in pharmaceutical manufacturing. So that's my come from space is pharma. And in 2019, with a few partners, Pascal Schaller is our designer, Anouk Zisa is our marketing brain, and myself, I'm the angel investor of Buoy and the CEO. We got together, and what we were trying to do is figure out, what can we do about this? Everybody hears, oh, plastic isn't recycled. And it seems like such an easy thing to do, to just start making something from it. right? And Pascal is such a genius designer. Hey, by the way, did you get the bottles we sent?
I have not.
Ah,
I
okay.
live in South Carolina. I was expecting to be in Chicago to pick
Ah,
those up last week, and I did not actually go to Chicago last week. I'll be there in 2 weeks though, and I'm looking forward
amazing.
to it.
Amazing. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, I'm so glad you're gonna get them then. But sorry, so what was I saying? Oh, Pascal is this genius designer. And if you've seen the shape of the bottle, it's very
Yeah.
minimalist. I always call it instantly iconic because it's not my design. I can brag on Pascal. So I can't, I'm too humble to brag on myself, but I will brag on Pascal. It's that thumb loop on the top, instantly
Mhm.
iconic bottle. I think it's beautiful. And so he came up with that design. We were like, oh my God, this is fantastic because the water bottles that are in circulation, all of them, I'm going to mention brands, but it's not any particular brand over another. They're made by a very small handful of companies, all in East Asia. Is Hydro Flask or Stanley or Yeti or any of those bottles are very pollution intensive to make, right?
Yeah.
It,
A lot
and
of
and
metal.
it's all the metal. This metal is
Yeah.
super pollution intensive, and they're incredibly difficult to recycle. In fact, I seriously, Hydro Flask will take them back, and they say they'll recycle them, but I have a huge question mark about how much of that really gets done. You'd have to blast off the powder coated paint. You'd have to drill out the solder in the middle. You'd have to cut it across and separate it out. I forget if Hydro Flask has copper in there. You'd have to take that out. It's a recycling challenge that you just know is not going to happen. It's like all the people with the folded cartons that tell you they're going to recycle that too. It's like, oh, sure you are. Yeah, I'm sure that's going to happen all the time. And so the challenge, the opportunity we felt was, let's just make a sustainable bottle. And so the design challenge and engineering challenge was, let's make a bottle where you can easily take the elastomers off and throw those out and put the bottle in curbside recycling, because the goal was to make a bottle that was curbside recyclable. And then the next challenge was, well, what should be our source of that material? Should we make a PET bottle? What should we make it out of? I had, in one of my pharma lives, I had made uh, 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 Pedialyte out of Pedialyte inside a polypropylene bottle. That's what they use for Pedialyte is
Yeah.
PP. And then I had half our reagent tanks in pharma are made out of HDPE. We use tons of HDPE in pharma. It's an amazing chemical, completely non-reactive. I mean, an amazing polymer, completely non-reactive. You can put all kinds of crazy stuff in HDPE, and it doesn't take a licking. It's perfect. So
Mhm.
I had a ton of confidence in both of those materials. It turns out polypropylene not very well recycled in the West, especially. So we went to polyethylene, HDPE, and then we were like, well, what's the most beneficial source of that? And we discovered something called ocean-bound plastic. So ocean-bound
Okay.
plastic is defined as plastic that's collected within 50 miles of a coast in an area where waste collection is very poor. So, like, I'm within 50 miles of a coast right now, but nothing collected here would be considered ocean bound because there's no reason to
Yeah.
think I'm parked next to a trash can, for God's sake. There's no reason to think that.
Where are you at, by the way?
I'm
Just
in
location wise.
I'm in Los Angeles. So
Los
I'm in
Angeles. Because
California.
I lived in Los Angeles for a long time. I went to college in Los Angeles a
Oh,
long,
where'd you
long time
go?
ago.
Yeah,
Azusa Pacific University
of course.
in
Yeah,
Azusa,
no, that's
California.
cool. Oh,
Yeah.
that's great. Yeah, Azusa
Yeah.
so this ocean bound plastic. The reason we liked this so much is that it's when you buy ocean bound plastic, what happens is the company that collects it, and we work with a supplier called Envision. The company that collects it,
Yep.
they
I
don't
know
do
Envision.
something. Do you know them, right? Yeah, they're a big player. They're
Yeah.
fantastic.
Mhm.
We love them. They've been such a great supplier. They've been so helpful with giving us LCAs and all the stuff we need. Um, so they they don't do the Instagram nonsense of, oh, here's a net at the edge of a stream where all this plastic is coming and blah, blah, blah. And look at me, I'm a hero, or some attractive person reaching down on a beach and grabbing a bottle. They just build boring MRF-like infrastructure in an area, creating jobs, helping with the waste collection in general. And like so much of the world has terrible waste collection. And so in Haiti and South Mexico, where we get our stuff, create this waste collection. And it's way too boring to put on Instagram. It's the right thing to do. Right.
It is.
And so that's why we sourced it that way, right? We don't make it. I mean, we could make it out of California HDPE. If someone wanted a bottle out of California HDPE, we could easily do that. That's a flick of a switch. But we currently source ocean-bound HDPE from Envision, and we make this bottle. And so our mission is to make, if you look at the LCA for our bottle, which I have calculated, you would have to keep a stainless steel thermos bottle, any of them, for 112 years to equal the carbon impact of using a buoy bottle for 3 years, then burning it in a fire, and then getting another one and burning it in a fire 3 years later. And you'd have to do that for 112 years to finally make the buoy bottle equal the carbon impact of the stainless steel bottle. So that's
an easy story. It's an easy marketing angle. The problem I've found is people, when you start talking LCAs, they just glaze over. Like, I got no idea what you're talking about. Do you run into that at all with people?
You know, especially in this plastic panic, it's funny to me that the most of the ecological types that I talk to are kind of more a wellness group than an ecology group. They do not care in any.
There's a serious lack of scientists in these groups.
Their science understanding is extremely low. And, you know, you and I are on LinkedIn, right? You go on LinkedIn and you see these two polarized groups, and I'm in both of them, right? Because I want to know what's being said. You see this one group, this one plastic panic after another. And when you get to the plastic panic people, when you follow wait, where did you get this? Where did you get this? And I ask that respectfully, and you follow down the story, and it's some research piece that's further research is needed. The FRIN thing that is every microplastic article that they're lighting their hair on fire about is generally, even in the abstract, there is a sentence from a scientist that's doing research that's funded by all these NGOs, but they're saying something responsible, which is no connection has been made with microplastics and human health. I have not seen a single connection at this point, and I would be surprised. Yeah,
me either.
There's nothing there, and as a pharma guy, it would be somewhat surprising to see it, simply because like HDPE is practically the most inert material you could invent.
It's interesting. The lack of scientific understanding, specifically in polymers, because there's this scare that's going on right now. People constantly bring up to me, let's bring it back to polystyrene for a second. They'll be like, well, it's made out of styrene and styrene's dangerous. I'm like, well, first off, I wouldn't recommend drinking styrene. I think that would be a horrific idea. But once you polymerize it, it is inert. And then the residual styrene in there is like 10,000 times lower than the limit for your daily intake that you're getting by eating strawberries and cinnamon and everything else that naturally contains styrene. It's like, what are we even talking about here? You have such a misunderstanding of how this stuff works, and yet people are listening to you. And that is so frustrating to me, because I'm like, we've got people that we can talk to like yourself that has been in the space. You're a scientist, you understand these things, but then just some loud NGO person that has no training can get 10 times the reach that you do.
It's super
It's really frustrating.
And I
isn't it?
mean, kind of the story of PVC, right? You have vinyl chloride, you get cancer of the liver if you sat there drinking polyvinyl chloride all the time or breathing it in or whatever, because your body has to work to get it out. But once you polymerize it, exactly like styrene, it becomes this amazing chemically resistant polymer. If Flint, Michigan had been all PVC piping, that lead poisoning never would have occurred. It's a beautiful water pipe. And just to give you an example, I've run a plant where we produce our purified water with CPVC piping. And what you do is when you build the loop, you run water through it. Purified water is super aggressive, right? If you're going to strip and if you're going to leach anything out, purified water will get it, right? So as it goes through the loop, it leaches everything out that could possibly be leached out of that piping, to the extent where if you cut the piping, because I've seen repairs done and looked at the piping, there's this blanched white layer. It has leached out every possible thing. And once it does that, you can do purified water, which is a very high grade of water. It's almost like distilled water. So, there's a misunderstanding and people are very much against PVC. And I'm like, I don't know how we build this world without PVC. Like people think, well, go figure out something else to build it with. And I don't know what we've got. And the only thing that's better about the better mousetraps that are being built is that they eliminate plastic. It's considered to be a priori good to eliminate plastic, and that's where I have a huge question mark. Is like you said, they're bored with LCAs. They don't want to look at LCAs because I think at this point they've gotten the message that the LCA is almost always going to favor plastic, right? Plastic is light. It's cheaper to produce. Once you account for the petroleum, of course, my LCA is so low because I'm using recycled plastic, so I don't have to take credit, quote unquote, for the petroleum. But even virgin plastic,
but even with like virgin, like we're checking all the way back to methane leakage at the wellhead.
Totally.
So I always see this argument that plastics LCAs are truncated. Well, we're not accounting for any of that at the front end. It's like, I'm going to tell you right now, we're certified by every other organization, like an organization like every other big company is, and we're checking it all the way back to where it is pulled out of the ground. So this whole thing that plastics are using truncated LCAs is bogus. And I get tired of that too.
I've never heard that argument, and I've never seen a plastics LCA that from when I look at plastics LCAs, about 60%, something around there, is the petroleum exploration and methane coming off the wellhead and all that kind of stuff. Like my LCA is approximately 60% truncated from a virgin plastic LCA. That's more or less where,
because you're doing burden-free waste that you found, so you've got a zero to start with because it's already reached the end of its useful life.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's gonna.
And that's the way everybody does it. And that's not just a plastics thing. That's the way if you're putting glass into asphalt, that's the way they would do it. If you're redoing paper, that's the exact same way. So anybody who wants to come at me and say, well, that's bogus, like, well, that's what everybody does. So if you don't like that system, come up with a better one.
Of course, it's how you should do it. It's very funny. It's like
exactly. I agree.
It's the the glass thing is another story. It's so interesting. I've heard you say that on the podcast that a lot of glass goes into asphalt because this is the challenge I have in many cases is that people hold up an aluminum bottle at some at some circularity meeting that I'm at. They hold up an aluminum bottle and they say, this is perfectly recyclable. And I'm not a very confrontational person by personality, but I often ask, hey, that exact bottle, the one that's in your hand, is that 100% recycled? And the highest I've ever gotten someone who looks at the bottle, they weren't expecting it, and they look at the bottle, is 30% recycled is the highest answer I've ever gotten. And most of them, not at all. So it's in glass.
And it all depends on the region, recycling infrastructure. There's so many different things. Like people in my world, people will be like, well, we're just going to move away from polystyrene to make something recyclable. we're going to go from polystyrene to PET. Like, okay, but you're still in the same application, and that application is not going to be recycled as PET. So you're actually not helping anything. You're just spending more money to make a claim that can't be backed up by science by saying now it's recyclable or it's made with PET, so it's recyclable. Like, that's just
Right.
not
And
fact.
let me unpack that just to have that discussion. Is so you're saying, like, if you have a plate that's used for food service for PET, right? It's gonna be dirty and it's not gonna enter into the recycling stream. It's just gonna be trash.
Yep. I think the issue that we have is most people that are making these decisions, either at a brand or regulatory body or whatever, they don't really understand what goes into making recycling work. And so they just go with the zeitgeist. They're like, the zeitgeist is PET good,
Right.
all other polymers bad. Aluminum
Right.
good, all plastics bad. Glass good, everything else bad.
Recycling, which is that you have to compact it. One part of Buoy's business, we make this bottle and we sell the bottle. We sell it mainly to zoos and corporate, and we're starting our consumer business, direct consumer business right now. We've got ads going, et cetera. But the other part of our business, one other part of our business, is that we do reuse systems. We have a coffee cup. Here's a little coffee cup. I got one in the mail to you. We've got a coffee cup and we've got food containers. And it's very much, it reminded me of the challenge of reuse. So reuse being you give a restaurant a bunch of these durable containers. When they give a to-go dish, they give it to the customer in that. There's an accountability app that checks it out to the customer, and then the customer has so long to return it, et cetera. But if your washing center is 20 miles from that restaurant, you're really not doing anything, right? You're exchanging it, and it's very much like the challenge of recycling polystyrene, right? You just in the case of reuse, you're exchanging materials that you would have thrown away into a landfill. You're exchanging those materials for water, logistics, and labor, right? And it's like it. Yes. Right. From an emissions perspective, which is, is still something that
Are you talking as far as like a GHG, like emissions perspective? Okay.
it's just a nice little ruler to say, like, how much impact are you having, et cetera. So if you're having to drive too far to a washing center to go wash these things and then drive them back, at what point is it just better to have a disposable that just goes into the landfill? Because plastic in a landfill, the reason I'm so pro recycling is this whole plastics is toxic is not really. I mean, I always say that, that thing they say there's a credit card worth of plastic in your body, and they say that plastic is toxic. I just always point out to people very humbly that both of those things cannot be true at the same time. Right?
Yeah.
Had a credit card worth of anything that's actually a toxin in your body, I wouldn't be talking to you anymore. I would be burying you. And so actually, it's most probable that neither of those things are true, right? Plastics aren't toxic in the meaning of the word toxic that any of us would actually talk about in our normal lives. And most plastics are beautifully inert. And as I look at this research about, we found plastic here, we found plastic there, it's a bunch of further research is needed stuff. And most of the scientists, and I could give you links for this for the show notes, but many of the scientists that, I'll give you some links to this. It's very interesting. A lot of the scientists who look at these microplastics report, especially the one that was like, they're in my brain, and that was really concerning. Those scientists looked and said, this is the wrong method to use. I think that these lipids, you're finding lipids. You're not finding polyethylene. You're because they have to take the fragments they find and fragment them and then test them. And the scientists were like, this is not a good method. The mass spec method they were using could be non-specific, and it could also be finding lipids. And so the other comment that I found that I'll again send you a link to is that these particles you're finding are huge. there is a 0% chance that they could get through the body at that size. Because to circulate through your capillaries, you have to be like about 2.5 micrometers. That's about, I'll send you a link to that too. That's about as big as you could be to actually get through the capillaries. And so, they're finding these nanometer type particles in the brain. And was one guy very humbly, just a nice scientist who was commenting on it, was just like, hey, I think this might be lab dust, And so it's just this interesting stuff but journalists don't pay attention to any of that, right? They just get it. They publish. There's more clicks to scare the devil out of people. People are kind of addicted to, not addicted, that's the wrong word. I think we like an apocalyptic idea, right? For millennia, we like apocalypticism and we like millennialism for
what humanity. It's part of being human.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. In my most uncharitable way, I feel like human beings don't like the idea that this world is going to go on joyfully without them. And so they enjoy thinking about, well, I'm one of the last people anyway, because this whole place is going to burn down after me. So what do I care?
Yeah.
So I think it's very, and these NGOs, I think to get the level of donations they need, they have to convince people that this is some kind of Marvel movie where they're saving the world. And so to argue that you're saving,
you're 100% correct.
Yeah, it's like I'm. Let me tell you something that Buoy is not doing. Buoy is not saving the world. I don't think that activity is an available activity for us. First of all, I'm a reasonable person. I don't think in my life that I'm going to be put in a position to where I can save the world. Like this is Avengers Endgame. That's a silly way to think about the world. I think I'm doing a tangible, finite good in the world by doing the things I do, and I think that is officially good enough. I'm very excited to be doing it.
Honestly, I agree. It's like people give me a hard time all the time. They're like, well, you're just doing a podcast. It's not like you're actually out there saving the world. It's like, I didn't realize that was in my job description. I thought my job description was to be the best person that I could be, raise my kids well, and leave the world a better place than I found it. And if I'm doing those three things, I feel like I'm pretty successful. It is the way that I look at it.
100%.
It's like, if you feel like you've got some sort of God complex where you've got to go out and save the world every day, nothing's ever going to feel like you're measuring up and like you're not doing enough. But you don't need to do
that. The activity is not available for you to do. And the people that delude themselves thinking that, I could do X, Y, Z and save the world, it's kind of this weird thing about effective altruism, that they have these crazy theories about, the future's going to look like this, like the whatever, like super intelligent AI is going to take over the world, or something like that. So we have to do this very stringent set of sensorial behaviors to control AI in a transnational way. And if you're not thinking about this, you're going to be an AI slave in 3 years and stuff like this. And I'm just like, I don't know if, that's fine, but you're asking me to like drop everything and just focus on this, where to me, the part of one of the things that makes, I'm an American, one of the things that makes America so strong is we kind of have let people do what they're passionate about doing, right? Just let people go. You're down for polystyrene, and you're going to continue to figure out uses for polystyrene and how to set up these. I'm fascinated by the logistics of it because I do the reuse, because you have to have these local stations compressing polystyrene in order to make it work, right? So you have this local, the logistics of that is fascinating and amazing. And so there could be something in LA where it's like, here, bring the polystyrene and compress it. And we should talk more about that. I have a warehouse. Maybe that's something I can get involved.
Yeah. I think part of this conversation is going to be that, because I do want to talk about that.
But this telling everybody, you've got to work on this one thing. That's the only thing, because well, why should I just work on that one thing? Well, the only possible reason, the world is ending. the world is ending. And if you don't work on this one thing, the whole world is going to end. And it's like, oh my God, this sounds like a formula for a massive waste of money. I'm going to find a link for this too. But back when I was a kid, I'm a little older than you are, but back when I was a kid, I think someone in the NIH or somewhere, some group of very powerful medical researchers had decided that they found the cure to cancer, right? It's interleukin. I think it was interleukin 2 or something like this. I might be wrong. Sorry if I'm wrong. I'll correct it. But they, all the research money was going towards this one cure to cancer. Well, 20 years later, it was like, hey, that didn't work so great. And it was like, well, if you had, in those 20 years, there were some brilliant PhDs who just couldn't get money if they weren't working on this one problem, right? And the same thing is happening in Alzheimer's, as I understand, is this this fiber that they've been looking into. It's like the only way you can get money is to research that. And now some researchers are like, hey, that doesn't seem to be it. But we spent 20 years just massively focused on this one thing. Whereas if you have all these brilliant people, let them scatter around and randomly go. And maybe 90% of them don't find anything useful, but the 10% who are allowed to wander are going to find these brilliant things. So, and anyway, I think finite goods, not trying to save the world or deluding yourself into thinking you're saving the world, gives you a possibility of making exactly what you just said, making the world a better place when you leave it.
And I'll guarantee you there's some detractors that listen to my show that'll hear that and be like, he doesn't want to leave the world a better place. He just wants to make more money for corporations or big oil or whatever. And I'm like, no, I don't care about whether or not big oil makes more money. What I care about are the people that I work with and the fact that I want the record to be straight and get both sides of the discussion out there. Because right now, the only people that are really talking are the people that are the anti-plastics. And so it takes more than just me. It takes a lot of people coming forward and saying, you know what, all this stuff that we're reading, all this stuff that we're seeing isn't true. And it's a tough debate to have with people when they've already got their minds made up.
The NGOs and the anti-plastics folks have flooded the zone with a lot of really poor information. And when people hear information enough times, there's just this presumption of truth. Like when I talk to people about, there was a teacher at my kid's school, and she's this lovely, lovely woman. And we were having a meeting about something apropos to nothing. It was just a meeting about school dynamics or whatever. And she mentioned in the meeting very casually, like, I try to tell the kids about the environment, but, there's microplastics everywhere and in us, and it's all too late anyway, and blah, blah, blah. And I wrote her this note, and I was like, you sweet woman, you think you're being destroyed from the inside by microplastics. And that's not cool.
Yeah.
It's just not cool. And being from pharma, I mean, this is an absolutely crazy, amazing time to be alive. There are, certainly the death rate from certain cancers, by the time you get into an age, Justin, where you could possibly get that, they're going to be amazing cures to those things. Like pharma is moving its feet, even though people also think pharma somehow is some evil thing. And not that terrible decisions haven't, of course. Anytime money is involved in something, corruption comes up and horrible things happen and horrible decisions get made. I get that. But net, pharma has been killing it for the last 100 years, right? It's like plastic. Net, the effect of plastic on society has been massively positive. A friend of mine got cancer, and they cured it by injecting him with a version of the HIV virus that actually went in, because HIV is like some genius virus, right? It tinkered with our immune system, right? And so the immune system is what allows cancers to live to a certain extent by not killing them off. And so it tinkers with the immune system and gets them to just turn off the cancer. And that's a very incompetent explanation for how it happens, but it's an absolute, these things are this is an amazing time to be alive. And the fact that there's all these health panics during this time where you have never had it better. Like, your health is going to be incredible.
We live longer, we live better, and yet we're all concerned about dying more so now than I think ever. And I think a lot of that comes back to we're so far removed from death. Like if you look at, let's just go back to World War II. It was a common occurrence to be around when people died. And it was just something that you got used to. And like the infant mortality rate before the turn of the 20th century, you just assumed you're going to lose 2 out of 3 kids or 2 out of 4.
Mm.
And it was just normal. And now none of that stuff happens. And we are so focused on our mortality that we're trying to figure out what it is that will kill us. It's just such a weird thing that's happened because we are so, I don't know, babied, or we're so protected now that everybody worries about things that, if you lived in another country,
none of it would rate as any kind of concern. You'd have to sit someone down for half a day to explain. It's so funny. Yeah, there's a book I'm reading. It's a little academic, but it's called Anxiety Culture, which is so interesting, because I'm trying to figure out the same thing we're talking about is like, is there just this level of stress and anxiety that the human brain is used to creating? And if you don't have anything to be anxious about, do we like it's almost an autoimmune condition where you self-create this level of anxiety?
We're not running from lions and tigers anymore.
Right.
So we can find something else to be worried about.
My mother, she would always show me this list of my grandfather's brothers and sisters, and there were 11 of them, and there were 5 of them that grew up. Right. And vaccines and antibiotics have been so successful that there's not a pregnant woman today who even imagines in America, that her baby is not going to thrive and survive. It's unimaginable for us.
That brings you to a whole other discussion about anti-vaxxers, but I definitely don't want to run down that path today. That's going to get us way off topic.
Level of anxiety that seizes us in this time where human flourishing is unimaginable, right? You couldn't have explained to someone 150 years ago what our expectations were about life and thriving and life expectancy and what we were going to do in our lives, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, amazing. So polystyrene, let's talk about what. Yeah. So here's I'm just going to describe the project like we're on a phone call.
Yeah. Let's talk about it.
So I have this bottle we manufacture in California. So we can't do complex manufacturing because all of that's been shipped off seas, right? So we need to do a simple injection mold, and there's no way to do the vacuum sealed insulation and stuff like that. With plastic, that's tricky anyway. So in any case, we had a call from a promotions agency who works for a company, who they sell to a company. They sell our bottles to this company already, who says, I want an insulated bottle, but I want it curbside recyclable. I want it made in America. Right. And so that's their goal for this bottle. So I said, I don't know if I'm going to be able to meet all of that, but maybe I can meet some of it. We went through a lot of iterations. One of the iterations was we actually have built a prototype where there's a glass insert that fits inside our bottle, right? Cutting the volume by about half. And then there's an air gap around it. And we cushion it with a couple of O-rings, right? But then I tested the insulation value of that, and it honestly didn't do all that much. It helped by about 5 degrees the whole life, but it didn't get, nothing's going to get really close to a vacuum sealed stainless steel bottle, right? That's hard to meet. But at least I want it to have some effect. And when I listened to your podcast for the first time about 4 weeks ago or 5 weeks ago and heard you talking about recycling polystyrene, I was like, oh my God, that's really close to our value proposition. If I could get an insert that would go between the glass bottle and the inner wall of my bottle, we could and if it were from a recycled polystyrene and we re-expanded into the appropriate shape, not only would it beautifully, perfectly cushion this bottle, this glass bottle, but I think it would provide more insulation, enough insulation to where we could. So I think that's the project I want to work on, and I kind of want to get. I've sent this bottle. I'm working with a glass company called Oberk. I don't know if you've heard of them. They're in your neighborhood. They're like in Chicago, maybe. Anyway, so it's this glass company called Oberk. It's very funny. I want the glass to be made in the U.S., but at my quantity, it's just they're like, every glass company I talked to was like, that's not going to be the U.S. That's going to be China or India, which is fine. Like I make in the U.S. just because I want to make things in the U.S. and I want my logistical footprint to be very small. And as someone who worked in manufacturing in California, like, let's do it. If we can do it here, let's do it here. I don't know why everybody got completely on fire to
Agreed.
like, let's send everything, this globalist, let's send everything out of the country. It'll be great, and China did afford us a 0% inflation rate for about 25 years. And thank you very much, China, and Chinese citizens and workers. But, let's bring some stuff back here. I don't want to, it's hard. It's not for the weak to manufacture stuff in America right now. It's pretty difficult.
I know you want to tick all three of those boxes, but I'm going to point out one box that you're going to struggle with. It's the curbside recyclable. And it's not just the glass by itself would already make it not curbside recyclable because it's the multi-material. So you're never going to get there. What you can do is you can do a drop-off system. A lot of people give drop-off systems a hard time, but only 7% of recycling that happens in the U.S. comes to curbside. And that's the thing that most people don't really understand. And they vilify drop-off programs or B2B systems, but that's really where recycling happens. So if you can get a system set up where you can collect the specific material and then have it broken down. The difficulty with what you're talking about is you're going to have HDPE, you're going to have, let's just say you put EPS in there, and then you have glass. So you would have to have a way that you could break all three of those out, where you can save each three of those, at least the HDPE and the polystyrene, and then you can sell that back into the market. It's just a matter of, you're almost going to have to build a collection system just for this. And that makes it difficult, right? But what I will say is, if there was an easy way at the end of the day, if somebody was done with the bottle, if there was an easy way that they could just take it apart themselves and pull out the each of the pieces and then put them individually where they need to go, that would be interesting, because then you could figure out a way to save all three of those at the end.
So you can take it apart in the middle, and then you would pull out the glass and EPS middle. And the EPS would need to be not a single piece, but two pieces pushed together. You'd take apart those pieces, exposing the glass. And then, exactly like you said, the elastomers go in one pile, the EPS goes in another pile, the glass and the HDPE bottle. So it becomes this, we've always designed such that we can do exactly what you say, is take it all apart.
I think the other difficulty you're going to have if you're producing in California is EPS foam food service is banned in California.
Right.
So you're going to have to get it from another state. There are thousands of collection sites for EPS that are currently densifying, bringing in material, densifying it, and selling it back into the market every day. So EPSIA, so the EPS Industry Alliance, is the trade group that supports the EPS industry. They've got a thing on their website that shows all the drop-off locations and then all the players. So you can figure out who they are, and you can talk to them about possibly getting some material. The other thing that's a concern for you, but it shouldn't be as much of a concern because there's going to be barriers on both sides. But sometimes EPS will have flame retardant in it if it's packaging, like transport packaging.
Okay.
So you would have to make sure that you found a source that didn't cause you a problem there, but they exist. You just have to go look for them.
And yeah, that's a good comment. I mean, the EPS would not contact the water, but I think to be safe, I would obviously want to have stuff that didn't have.
I would agree with you there. I typically would be of the same mind that, hey, it's not going to contact, but just to be safe, let's not have any kind of brominated flame retardants in our bottle anywhere. That's just smart. So there are states in and around your area that have that still allow foam food service. So you've got places like New Mexico.
Oh, that's great.
You can get from Arizona. And I do believe that there are multiple collection sites in both of those places that support foam food service. So that would be where I would start. Clean. The only way that these places accept them is because they're drop-off. They can control what comes in is if the material's clean when it gets there. And the other nice thing about drop-off is a lot of people aren't driving around with dirty stuff in their car to go drop off at a recycling center. They usually take the extra time to clean it out because you don't want trash in the back of your car while you're driving it to wherever you're driving it to. So it leads to a cleaner recycle stream.
Yeah, that's the mistake I think we made, and I believe you've talked about it too, which is the single stream recycling. We're like, oh, everything's easy, just throw it in the bin.
Worst thing we could have done. Yep. We made it too easy on people. And then because it's so easy, people don't do it the right way. And some of it's not their fault. Some of it's just bad marketing, bad communicating, a broken system where there's 5,000 different sets of rules for 5,000 different municipalities, those things. But if we would have said, all right, folks, at the very beginning, we're going to do recycling, but we're going to give you 6 bins. We're going to have you put each of these materials in the 6 bins. We're going to keep each of those clean. You have to wash them out before you put it in there. There can't be any food residue. And then made people do it that way, like Spain did and some other European countries have done, and make that the standard that they start with, not start low and then try to work your way up there, because you're never going to work your way up there now, because only 43% of Americans are recycling today. You ask them to do 6 times as much work, you're going to get 30%. And so we shot ourselves in the foot by starting with a broken system, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And there's so much, I talk to waste haulers all the time, and there's just so much wish cycling where people like, oh, this saran wrap, I'm going to throw it in there. They're going to figure that out. Or people still throw cartons, like Tetra Pak cartons, into the.
My neighbor had a vacuum cleaner in their recycling bin this week. I drove, and I'm the crazy neighbor that stops and says, hey guys, you can't put this in recycling. What are we doing?
Right.
And yeah, but I'm sure my neighbors don't like me very much, but I'm not letting that stuff slide.
No.
Like, no.
I mean, people think it's some leprechaun factory where somebody.
I don't know.
But
people think they throw it away, and away is not their problem anymore. Is the way most Americans think.
Correct.
And I've come to bash Americans a lot on this podcast, which I'm a little upset about, but at the same time, I'm like, well, facts are facts.
No, it's true. It's we do love to throw things away. There's, back to the whole the whole sketchy science stuff, and this has nothing to do with anything I sell, and has nothing to do with anything that you're working on either. But you remember the black plastic spatula thing that got into the Atlantic? So that whole thing about, these black plastic spatulas, they contain almost the limit of this chemical. I forget which chemical it was. And then the researchers came back after it was published in the Atlantic, and after I don't know how many millions of black plastic spatulas were thrown away in this country to be replaced with other things. Oops. They came back and said, oh,
We missed the decimal point.
Had gold.
And it completely invalidated.
Like utterly invalidated by
man.
any scientific measure. And then they said, but we still think that the research is, that it's a problem. And I'm like, how can you say it's still a problem when nothing points to it being a problem and all these things being thrown away? It's just, again, Americans love to throw things away. Like if you set up a newsletter where you told people what in their house they could throw away with justification because it was going to give them cancer in some dumb study that was done, that would be such a popular newsletter. It would be much more popular than your podcast or my products. Americans love to throw things away. And it's just something that I deal with a lot when people are, they want to recycle and they want to use recycled things. But in fact, what they want to do is they want to throw away half their house and just buy new stuff. That's the
consumer culture. Yeah, I think the plastics have some culpability in consumer culture. I've always admitted that, because if you look in the 50s and the 60s, there was this big push for, hey, we want to make more money with plastics, so we want to make it so people feel comfortable just throwing it away. Like, that's the value of it, is you can use it once and toss it. Horrible. Should have never done that. And I will be the first and the last to say, should have never done that. And we're still living with that right now, because that whole consumerism culture has taken over. And it's this, I need something to be fast. And something that nobody ever talks about, and I don't know why, is the amount of packaging in like fast food. It is insane, the amount of packaging in fast food, even if it's all paper. That's not good. We don't need all of that packaging, because we're going to run out of recycled fiber for paper anyway. And we're going to have to start getting more and more monoculture tree farms out there to make more paper. And then you're going to have more virgin paper, and making paper is a nasty, nasty process. I used to work for a paper company. It's gross. And so it's like, we're focusing on plastics, but we're not looking at everything else. I almost feel like the scapegoat has provided consumers a way to feel good about themselves while still making horrible decisions from an ecological perspective. Like they can say, well, I'm not buying any plastics, but I'm going to buy 10 times the amount of the paper products or the glass products or the metal products that I used to. Like even in my house, walk in there and there's probably like 15 of these Stanley cups like that you're talking about. We don't need 15. We needed maybe one. And it's like, why do we have 15? And but hey, we're not wasting over here, so now we can extra waste over here. It's just this ugly, ugly system that we've created, and there's no getting around it.
I wish there were
I really
too.
wish
I
there
don't
was.
know. I don't know how to message. I mean, this is one thing we're using Buoy for, as a platform. We've got this bottle. We sell the bottle. We talk about these issues, and just trying to make, if sustainability and all this stuff seems like eat your vegetables, this is something you have to do. Like if you're not eating yogurt out of a cracked ceramic jar, you're a horrible person. Like that's never going to sell to anybody. So the bottle is super cute. It comes in super cute colors.
No.
We're hoping it catches on with consumers. It has so far. We're growing and it's getting great. And we just want to make a fun product. It's also fun to consume, but in consuming it, what you're doing to the world goes dramatically down from what you're doing when you buy a bunch of Stanleys and stuff like that. And not to bash on Stanley, it's not just them, it's everyone, and even they suffer from.
Yeah, and when you buy EPS to go in there, that's 98% air too. So you're reducing the amount of plastic that you would put in there.
I see some things on LinkedIn where people are talking about we're replacing EPS in pharmaceutical cold chain with wool or something. And I'm like, oh my.
The lady from New Zealand or Australia or whatever, and she never has an LCA to back it up. And it's because she has a business that she's trying to sell wool.
Right,
I guess she has a farm and she's trying to find a
but
new
it's
outlet
like,
for all
oh
her
my
wool.
God, if you need some cold chain pharmaceutical, please do not get it in a wool box. Please. I mean, if that's the last place we use EPS in the world, could we please put cold chain pharmaceuticals in EPS so that they get there at the right temperature, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, it's funny the amount of waste.
Something else I like to point out is just look at coffee cup. Something that didn't exist before EPS coffee cups were banned is the little ring that goes on the coffee cup that you buy. And not only that, you never had 2 coffee cups given to you at any establishment. You know the amount of times I go to Starbucks where I get 2 coffee cups and then they put a little ring around there. It's just a waste. All of it's a waste. Just because there's no R value in that paper. And before, that foam would keep it hotter or colder for longer.
No.
And it didn't burn your hands because it didn't transfer. But we can't do that anymore. Now we got to do all this other stuff.
It would be interesting to compare the amount of plastic lining that paper cup with the amount of plastic that it took to make a styrofoam cup.
That would be. I think it's probably about the same, actually.
Could be very, very close. Especially if you got 2 cups going.
Yeah, it's a really thin layer on paper cups.
Yeah.
But still.
Yeah.
It's probably not as big of a differential as people think.
Right. That's what I'm saying. I think people would be shocked to know how little that difference is.
So we're already at 1 hour and 2 minutes. I always like to give the host or the guest kind of last word. Anything else that you've got going on? How can people find Buoy? How can they support you? All that kind of stuff. Whatever you want to talk about, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you. First of all, thank you for everything you're doing. Amazing. I love it. I will continue to be a fan and listen to all your podcasts. Buoy is at www.buoy.eco. Did I just show my age by saying www? Nobody says that anymore.
Yeah.
Darn it.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Nobody cares.
Buoy.eco.
Yeah. You could have said like HTTPS : / and then you really would have shown your age.
So buoy.eco is where we sell the bottle. Come on by. I am driving to my manufacturer in Oxnard right now to check on the molds. We've done some modifications. We're just coming out with new colors. We're super excited to roll out these new colors. They'll be coming out in a month. Check us out. If you're interested in reuse, the restaurant system, go to buoyzero.com. That's where we run the reuse out of. And the other thing we do that I didn't talk about much is we do act as a contract design and manufacturing organization, where if you have making stuff out of HDPE is tricky. We have failed a lot at it, enough to know what we're doing wrong and right. And so if you have a part of your product that you want to bump the sustainability on, you think HDPE is a good material, which it is for a lot of stuff, hit us up at buoy.eco, and we're happy to design and manufacture and do quality control on your parts. So that's what we do here at Buoy. Excited to have you. I'm excited to have been had here.
So we're talking 100% recycled content.
That's correct. That's what
and 100% ocean-bound plastic is the way you're making them right now. 2 things that I could not love more.
Indeed.
Which is why we're talking today. But Adrian, I really appreciate what you're doing. Appreciate the time, and really looking forward to seeing what's next. And if you want to send me over all those links, I'll make sure I get them into the show notes, and then we'll go from there. But for everybody that's listening, really appreciate it, and have a great night. If you want to learn more about the plastics industry, recycling, check out these other videos. Please like and subscribe.